Hello, our next session is going to be with Miguel Felix, who is a BI specialist with a background in finance. With 20 years of experience, in the last 15 years, Miguel worked as a business controller, with data analysis being one of his main responsibilities, and with Power BI, a world of possibilities opened up. He's now working full-time as a BI specialist, focusing on Power BI and the Power Platform solutions. Today's session is all about answering common questions about DAX and how to tackle them. So I'll start your video now, Miguel.
Hello everyone, welcome to Excel Virtually Global 2022. My name is Miguel Felix and I'm here to talk about DAX common questions and how to tackle them. I'm a BI specialist in AI solutions and I've been working with Power BI since 2015. I have a background in finance where I've worked as a business analyst and controller, and in those roles I developed several reports and several data analysis to have several types of users, different users, to take their decisions. As I said, I started using Power BI back in 2015, and I also started to to try and help some people around the community about Power BI. So back in 2018, I was invited to be part of the super user of the Power BI community. And then in 2019, I was awarded the Microsoft MVP data platform for my work on the community and what I did regarding Power BI. So when I started 2020, I thought that I could take my involvement in the community to the next level, and I started my blog and also the first live presentations on Power BI. In 2021, I was invited to be part of DevScope, a company that develops solutions in the Power Platform environment. And since then, I am working with Power BI full-time and being developing some reports and solutions around the usage of this tool. What is this session about? We are going to talk about how DAX is simple, but it's not easy. There is a lot of doubts when we talk about DAX. There is a lot of doubts when we talk about the Power BI. And if you go around the community, you can see that every day there are new questions, there are new replies about what we can do, what we cannot do. But most of them are recurrent. And in this session, we are going to see what is some of the most common questions that we can see and how we can handle them. Be aware that we are not going to talk about what is the best DAX formula to a certain problem. We are just showing some examples. We are not talking about the DAX performance. So this is not the best DAX that you can find out there. Can be or not. But the main focus is not that. It's just for you to see what are some of the ways that we can handle our issues, our problems in DAX, and how we can solve them. Okay. So this session is for beginners and intermediates, so people that are starting already have some knowledge of Power BI and how to make some metrics and calculations. And some of the examples we have is, for example, the filtering columns, the incorrect totals, the several relationships in one table, and so on. In this session, we will not have time to show all of the examples. Okay, I will try to show the most that I can, but let's see what time will allow us. So let's start with Power BI. First of all, let me tell you that I'm using the Contoso sales sample for Power BI. This sales sample is based on values of 2011 to 2013, so it's not very recent, but it's just a question of an example data set, so it's easy for that. So let's start on this table over here, on this visualization. We have a value for the total sales quantity based on continent and on year, okay? And let's assume that we want to calculate the value of the sales quantity for 2012, but without using any filter or any slicer. So we want to present this table as we have it, but only show the values for 2012 exactly. So we did a small measure over here. So as you can see, we use a calculate function that allows us to change the context of our calculation. And over here we have the sum of the sales quantity. In this case, we are doing that the calendar year is equal to 2012. So let's just do a small experiment over here. Let's put in a card visualization and let's put in the sales 2012. Let's just do this displays unit with all the values. So, and as you can see, the values are matching. 2012 is matching these sales over here, okay? So nothing strange. Let's check what happens when we do some modifications to this visualization, okay? So if we consider this a matrix and we put in, again, the continent name over here, if we put it to the rows, so everything still continues the same. So as you can see, so nothing changes. So 2.5, 2093 and 6.5. So all is working. But now let's pick up the year from the calendar table. So let's add in, as we have on top, let's add it to this column. So as you can see, now the result is a little bit different from what we expected. We were expecting to only have the column 2012 filled, so all the other would be blank or would disappear because they were blank on our calculation. But no, what we have over here is that every single column has the values for 2012. And what is happening with this? So let's go back to our total sales of 2012 and let's look at what is happening. When we use the calculate function and we specify a value, in this case for the calendar year, what in fact is happening is that we are using a calculate filter all calendar year. What does this mean? So let's apply this syntax as I said. So let's apply the filter. So the filter will allow us to return a table that is filtered. What we want to filter is as I said, all calendar year. And what does the all do? The all returns the rows in a table or all values in a column, ignoring any filters that might be applied. So let's put in calendar year, where calendar year equals 2012. If we do this, as you can see, the result will not change. So making the direct filtering, so calendar equals 2012, or making this syntax a little bit more complex with filter all, you see that the results don't change. So why? Because as we refer, the all removes the filter context from our data. So in this case, the filter context over here is the calendar year, so 2010. So this year is ignored, although it's here, it's ignored, and we always return the value for 2012. So this is by default what the calculate function does. So if we want to reference a column directly in the calculate and we don't use it in our context as we did prior, everything calculates properly, okay? We only have the sales for 2012. But if we add that specific column to the context, what happens is that all the values in that column will have the same result. So in this case, to solve this, what we can do is simply to change this to, for example, sales keep filters, where the year, let's just put in 2012 to have the same value. And if we do this, so the keep filters, if we do this, as you can see, the keep filters is an expression that allows you to keep only the filters for that specific value. If we add this column over here, as you can see, what happens is that every year outside of 2012 are blank and the 2012 have values. Okay, another option, this is one option, another option is, let's just take out this sales 2012. Another option is to have a filter with a selected value where calendar years is equal to 2000. Let's keep 2013 over here, so just for the example. And if we add, as you can see, the keep filters only gives values for 2012, and the all selected is the same thing, but in this case we change it to be 2013, so it only returns value for 2013. As you can also see, if you use the function of the keep filters, you also get the result in the total values. Okay, so some experiments that you can do around this, and to have all the values calculated. Be careful when adding a filter context that is based on the column that you use for the calculate. Okay. Another question that also happens frequently is, why are my totals incorrect? And let's check this small table over here with total of sales. In this case, we have two columns. So we have total sales, and the total sales, as you can see, is just a simple sum of the sales amount. Okay, nothing special about this. So we are just calculating what are the sales for each year and for each month. And then we have the conditional sum. The conditional sum is a metric that we created, and that makes a calculation based on the total value. If you look at this, we are just checking if the sum of the sales amount, so exactly the same value that we have in total sales, is greater than 225 million. If this value is greater, then it returns that value. If not, since we have a blank, since we did not fill out the last parameter of the syntax of the if, then it returns a blank. So let's look at the data. So as you can see, from January to March, all the values for 2011 are lower than the 225, so the conditional sum returns you blank values. All the other months in 2011 are higher than the value that we decided. So everything gets calculated for that month. If we look at the total sales for 2012, the same thing happens, different months, but the calculation is the same. But now let's look at our total value. So if we look at the total sales, 3.144, this is correct, is the sum of all these values. And if we look at total sales also in the line, so 377 is the total for these two values, so nothing special. But if you look at our conditional sum, we can start seeing some problems, some issues. As you can see, the totals, both in columns as in rows, are exactly the same, although in the conditional sum I don't have values on some of the columns. So what is happening over here? When I do this type of calculation, the calculation is based on the context. So meaning that when I'm at the year and month level, I get the calculation for this specific value. So in this case, I compare the 193 to the 225, and so returns the correct value. When I'm at this level, where I'm picking up only the January, but for both years, what is happening is that I'm comparing the 377 with the 225. In this case, I don't get the correct result. Why? Because 377 is higher than 225. But this is not what we want to achieve. We want to achieve the values within the matrix to have this comparison. However, in the totals, I want to sum the values of those lines. So over here, in this case, when I look at these values, I'm comparing the 3.14 for 2011 compared with 225, so it's higher and it returns the value. So let's do one thing. Let's look at this in a different way. So what we need to do is to have a table or a calculation that picks up each of these values that I have over here for the conditional sum and make the sum for all these values, disregarding the ones that are lower than that. So for this, what I can do, and let's just go over here to DAX Studio, that will allow us to get a clear example of what we are looking at. And we can do over here, let's do an evaluate, and let's do an evaluate of, let's summarize our sales table, okay? And over here, let's do the calendar month. Okay, let's do the calendar month. And now let's do also the calendar year. Okay, those are the two that we have on our table, so month and year. And now let's add in our conditional sum. Okay, this is the conditional sum, and this will pick up the conditional sum that is our metric. Okay, so over here we have all our values that we have in our table. So let's check over here. So we have the month name, we put in month number so we can sort it, but it's the same thing. We have the year and we have the conditional sum. Okay, if we do this and we return these values, what we can see, and let's just sort this properly, is that the values that we have over here are exactly the same ones that we have in this table. So for 2011, we have the first quarter fully blank. Why? Because all the values in each quarter, in each month of the quarter is blank, is lower than 225, and the rest has values. And over here we have some skips, and we also have for 2013. Okay, so what can we do to make, so I want to pick up these values and make the sum of these values. So there is some formulas in Power BI that can do this. So if we look at our corrected sales total, what we have over here, and let's just look at this part over here. As you can see, this part is exactly the same as we had. So sales, calendar year, month, and conditional sum. So year, month of year, and conditional sum. Okay. So we pick up this table that we created over here. That is a temporary table. This is not on our model. This is calculated upon the use of the measure. And we make a sum x. The sum x is the iterator function. So every function that has an x at the end is an iterator, meaning that it picks up all the values in the table we are looking at and makes use of those values to make the sum. And it's not picking up the rest of the values in our dataset. So in this case, what we are doing, we are picking up this first line and doing 0, or blank equals 0, plus this one, plus this one, plus this one, and so on until we get until the end of 2012. If we are looking, so let's just, so over here, as you can see, we are doing the sum x of the sales table and the conditional value that is our conditional sum. So if we pick up this and we put this corrected value over here, okay, let's add it to our table. Let's take out the total sales since we already saw that they are working correctly. If we do this, as you can see, the cell on each year and month is correct. So where we have higher than 225 is still higher. Where we don't have values, it's blank. But for the totals, so the totals in columns and in rows, they change. Why? Again, as I said, this is an iterator. So we are picking up, in this case, we are picking up the 276,891 and summing it with 0 and returning the value over here, so it's 276. And the same happens in terms of the columns. So we are picking up 246, 231, 227, 247, and 260, and the result is 1.2. Okay, so this is a way to correct the conditional calculations that we have. So be careful when making calculations based on if statements, because your totals will be can be I won't say will be because depends on the context that we have, but you have the question that the total may be incorrect because of the total value that we have over here is calculated based on this value and not on the context of each line or each column that you have. So be aware of the context calculation, okay? Next, let's talk about several relationships in one table. So in our model, and if we go to our sales table, I have created over here, let's go to our sales table. I have created over here, we have a date key, so it's the date where the sales were created. And I have created an order date that is simply a date that is a difference between the calendar date and the random date that we have between 30 and 90 days, okay? And as you can see, and we also sorted over here two tables. So this first one is based on the order date and the sales amount, okay? And this one over here is based on the order date, okay? This one is created date, so the sales amount date, and this is order date. We also have some slices over here that are synced, and that this first one filters out the sales table, and the second slicer filters out the order date, okay? So this is only for us to have the same period. As you can see over here, for the order date, if you select April 29 to 2nd of March, we get this value, so 2.210824, okay? And if you pick up over here, the sales amount is 2.252, okay? So everything is working as we need, okay? No problem. But what happens over here, what happens over here is that, let me just take out this one over here, because this calculation we will see later. What happens over here is that if I, for example, want to compare this side by side, and let's just look at what we have over here. So the orders over here is a column. Let's just check one thing. So the columns over here, sorry, it's not this one that I want. Close that. So, okay. So what happens? Sorry for the error. So what happens if we want to compare them side by side? Okay. If we had just use the normal value, so let's just do over here a value with the sales total amount. Okay. Let's just pick up this one and let's do the sales amount, okay? If I add over here the year and the month, okay, the calendar year, sorry, the year over here, and then the month name, okay, let's do a drill down. Okay, so as you can see, we have the values for each of the sales. So if I pick up over here, 51, 181, 231, and so on, as you can see. So this value matches, this value over here also matches. So sorry, this value is not matching because I have a different sales amount over here. The sales amount that I have is the sales amount, and over here I have sum of sales amount is the same one. Yeah. So, sorry, let me just check one thing over here really quick. Sorry. Let me just do one thing, because the filters over here are interacting in both of the values. That's why we don't have matches, okay? Sorry for the error. Let's just take out the interactions for this one and also for this one. So if we do it like this, as you can see, if now we go to the 2012 May values, so May 2012, let me just check over here. As you can see over here, we have the 200 and sorry, there is an error over here. Let me just check if I don't have any further calculations. Sorry, there is a question because over here I'm not starting on the first day of the month. Let me just put this on the first day of the month. Okay, so if we check once again, 220. So if you go to May, it's 220. If we go to December, should be 260. So as you can see, the values are matching. But now we have an issue, because if we pick up once again, and as you can see over here, if we pick up the sales amount once again, I cannot compare the dates. So what can we do? As I said, over here, we already have a measure. This value already has a measure that is based on the order date. So what we can do over here is to create a relationship, a virtual relationship. But let's look at the relationship in our model, okay? So let's look what we have over here. So over here we have our calendar table and our sales table. So as you can see, this first one is based on the date key. So it's calendar date key and sales date key. The date key over here of the sales is the one that we are using on this to filter out this date key, to filter out this chart, and also to filter out the line chart, okay? Second one that we have is a relationship between order date and date key. This relationship is inactive. If you try to make it active, as you can see, it says that you cannot create another active relationship between sales and calendar, because there is already an active relationship, okay? So how can we use this relationship that is over here, that is created but is not active, okay? What can we do? Let's go back again, as I said, to orders. And as you can see, what we did over here was a simple calculate of the sum of the sales amount and use the relationship of the calendar date key and the sales order date. So what we are doing with this calendar date, with this user relationship, as you can see, the user relationship specifies an existing relationship. So the relationship has to exist to be used in the evaluation of DAX. The relationship is defined by naming as argument the two columns that serve as endpoints. So basically we need to, as I said, we need to say, okay, let's pick up the date key from the calendar and the order date from the sales, and let's use this relationship instead of the date key that we have prior, okay? Making use of this one, if we pick up and put it over here, if we add it to our visualization, as you can see, now we have differences, okay? The blue one is the orders, and the dark blue, and the light blue is the sales amount. As you can see, as I said, the orders is always 30 to 90 days prior to the sales amount, okay? So in this case, as you can see, if we pick up this value over here, in October 2010, we have 43 million, okay? If we check October 2010, let's just do this over here really quickly. And let's just, these orders that we have on this one is the relationship. Let's put it over here, the sum of the values, okay? Let's just pick up the sales amount to put over here. As you can see, the values are matching, okay? This 43, why? Because remember, this table is being filtered out by the order of the month and year. So it's filtered out by this column that we had on our sales table, that is the order amount, okay? Let's just check one thing. The order month year is a simple formatting of the date order. Based on this, as you can see, what is happening is that the values are matching. So even though we don't have an active relationship between both of them, we can activate that relationship using the use relationship. Okay, let's go back to our orders. In this way, we can now compare in the same table or in the same chart the same values. So if we do this, if we now take this slicer and activate the slicer for this, now the two periods are filtered out exactly in the same way, and you can check that all the values match. Okay, we can even do in the middle of the month, no problem, and everything is matching. So we have these values that are matching the top ones. As you can see, orders 85 million, 85, sales 77. If you go to this month over here, let us just see, October 2012, orders 240 and sales amount 211. So sales 240. We have the same value for a sales amount or for user relationship. And then if you go over here for 2012 10, we have the 211 as we are expecting over here. Okay, so everything is working perfectly in this user relationship. So let's go to the next one. So this one is a tricky one. This one is about rankings, about sorting values. Let me just take out these ranking promotions for now. We don't need it, but let's see what we have over here. So this is a simple table that we have the promotion and the total sales, okay? And we want to have a ranking of these promotions. Usually, what people tend to do is to create a column on the promotions, and if we check the promotions table, we already created this column over here. And if you remember from the previous example of the totals that were incorrect, we have over here a rank X function. So this rank X function allows us to have a calculation, an iteration calculation, so row by row. And in this case, what we do is to pick up the promotion, that is this table over here, and then we calculate the ranking of the total sales. As I said prior, the total sales is just the simple sum of the sales that we have. When we make use of a metric like this in a table, what happens is that this is calculated based on the context of the total sales. So it's based on the relationships that we have, and if you pick up the promotion table over here, you can see that there is a relationship. So for each promotion key, we have the calculation. So when we look at over here at the total sales, and we can add a new column over here just for you to see. If we add a new column with the total sales, we get the values for each of the lines of the total sales. So this is based on the context and on the row, on the relationships that we have. So total sales, okay. If we do it like this, you'll see that the values are different, and it's easy to check if this is matching. If we use, for example, a period on each of the values, and we can check if everything is matching, and the values should be matching each one of those. So as you can see, no discount is 2.797 450. If you go back over here to 797 450, so the calculation is correct using the total sales. But let's go back to our ranking. And if we do a sort of this by descending order, we can see that the first one that we have is no discount. So this is the value we want, so no discount is the first one. So let's pick up that ranking column, and let's just take out the sum. We don't need this column to be summarized, okay? If we add this column to our ranking table, as you can see, what happens is that we have everything is summarized. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 until 28. It's all the values that we have in this table, so everything is matching, okay? So, but we have an issue over here, is that these values are calculated at the row level in the table. So if I try to filter out only, for example, the values of 2011, what you can see is that I have a 1, okay? The no discount is still the first one, is correct. Then we have a 2, but then the values start jumping numbers, okay? 1, 2, 4, 6, 11. And why is this happening? Because we are picking up this European holiday promotion, okay, on 2011. So let's check on our table what happens. So let's go to the European holiday promotion. As you can see, we have 3 of them, and we have a sales on 2011. So let's see what is the line of 2011. So it's this first line. So 2011 is ranking 11, okay? As you can see, ranking 11. For the spring promotion is 13. So this is not what we want. We want that pick up these values for these dates and give us a correct ranking. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. What can we do? Instead of using a column on our ranking, we can do it at using a measure. This allows a more flexible calculation because it's based on the context and all of the changes we do. So let's check over here a measure that we already did. So over here, let me just do 2 changes on this one. So let's first of all put all the promotion. So let's pick up the table, all the table, okay? And let's take out over here the calculate. Let me just use the same expression that we did. So on the other, so we are using the same measure. So let's do the ranking of the promotion. Let's just do the promotion first of all. And let's do the total sales. So exactly the same value as we have in our column, okay? So rank X promotion total sales descending. If we go to the source code of the promotion ranking column, you can see that is the exactly same. It's exactly the same code, rank X promotion total sales, and let's use this on our table, okay? Let's just add this to our table. Let's see the final result. First of all, as you can see, everything is giving 1. What is happening over here is that when we use a metric on the rank X, we need to involve it in calculate, okay? The calculate will make the engine use the context, to take out the context of the calculation and make use of the relationships that there are in the model. So in this case, what we are doing is to force that relationship that we have over here to be a part of the calculation of the total sales and to recalculate the values. So as you can see over here, we still have some incorrections. If we take out, this still continues to be 1. Why? Because the promotion tables, we are not yet picking up the values we want. For when we do promotions only, what we are doing is to pick up this value over here. So just this no discount. Making this, it calculates what is the ranking of the 2.7. It's 1. So because we only have a table of 1. When we go to the next level, North America, it's again 1. Why? Because we are only considering 1 value. Because if you remember at the beginning of our session, we said that the context of a specific column is just that value. So in this case, we are picking up a table with only 1 value. So how can we change that? If you remember, there is a measure that is the all, a function that is the all, that removes the filter context. So let's use the all over here. If we do all promotions, as you can see, this will change. And the calculation now is done based on the full table of promotions, okay? This will return the correct value that we want, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is exactly the same value as our first ranking. So what we did was we do a ranking of the promotion tables without taking into account any context of the lines. And then we do the calculation of the total sales, okay? And the ranking is based on that. But let's just continue as we did. So let's filter for 2011. If we do for 2011, as you can see, the calculation now gets corrected. So instead of having 1, 2, 4, 6, 11, 13, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The same happens if we go to a month level, or if we select 2 months, 2 different months. So now we have corrected our calculation. So as you can see, although the formula is the same. We need to take into account the context of the row and remove that context of the row. And then using the total sales, we can now make the selection. We can, over here, we can do based on all the table, or if the table is too large, we can do it only on the specific, in this case, promotion name. Okay. You can also do the all based on a single column. And if you do this, hopefully everything will be the same, and you can work in the same way for the values that you have. Okay. So in this case, since we are having the promotion ranking over here, this is returning the incorrect value. But if I take it out, okay, now we have the correct values. So what happened over here is that on our ranking, so on this part of the ranking of the all, we need to identify all the columns in that specific table that we are using. So if we go back, if we go back to our to having our promotion rankings over here, if I go to our measure and I add as a context the promotion rankings, you can see that now, since the context is for this table is on the promotion name and the ranking, this should be now corrected by 1 and 2. Okay. So be very aware, be very careful about the way the calculation is done and the way you can return it. Okay. So these are some of the common questions that appear. So just going back a little bit and remembering. So don't forget that filter with a direct column name. So if you look at filter with a direct column name, we get the same as filter all. So be very careful with referencing a column directly in a filter of the calculate. The incorrect totals can be tricky because of the row and column context that we have on our table. So we always need to get calculation based on the tables and the context that we have. We can also have multiple relationships for one table that will allow us to make comparisons. Just be aware that one of the relationships is always the domain one, that is the one that is active. This will take the first place in your calculation. So all of the others need to be used in use relationships. Okay. And also be careful with the ranking, especially if you are comparing the values to a dynamic one. Don't use a column if you want it to be dynamic. If you don't need it to be dynamic, you can use a column. So lastly, don't forget, all the measures that have an X are iterators. Iterators do calculations row by row on a table that you have. In this case, we have shown you two examples, the sum X and the rank X. But there are a lot more: average X, minimum X, maximum X. So all of those are iterators. Okay. Okay, go. Okay. So we have more questions. Don't forget to go to the community. There are several examples. My contacts are this one, so you can reach out to me through LinkedIn on my blog posts. The blog is in Portuguese, but using the translating tools, you can make use of of the post that I share. Also, you can reach out through email. And finally, let me just thank you all for be part of this session. Also, a big thank you to the Excel Virtually Global organization for allowing me to present this session, and to help you on having more information and more learning about Power BI and DAX. So don't forget to check the rest of the sessions on Excel Virtually Global, and thank you once again.
Well, thank you to Miguel for that session. I'm just going to put you live now, Miguel, so you can say any more or answer any questions.
Hello.
Should be appearing any moment now. There you go.
Hello.
That was a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I noticed we had a question about the data sets, which you said you would hope to provide later, which is great. I've got a question if no one else has got anything coming up. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to get to grips with DAX? What resources would you recommend?
Yeah, DAX is always tricky to handle. So
Yeah.
I recommend that you start by checking the documentation, is always handy. But there
Yeah.
are several courses online and several resources, especially the ones from Marco Russo and Alberto Ferrari are always a good start. They have complete courses in DAX that go from intermediate to advanced with reasonable price, I think. Depends on also on the possibilities each person has. And there is also the books, several books, some from again from Alberto and from Marco, but there are several DAX books that you can acquire, because the main question about DAX is where everybody gets lost is on context. So I think that you should always go back to the documentation and revise it, and always check the best practices around DAX, because it's tricky. But
yeah,
those are
we use the calculate function a lot as well. That's a familiar one.
Yeah, there is a lot of discussion around the calculate and should we or should we not use it, but yeah, I think it's one.
Yeah. When would you recommend using DAX, and when would you recommend using Power Query?
I think this depends on the model itself and on the result you want to achieve. If we are talking about transformations that you want to have at in your table that are permanent, let's say it like that, you should always as back as you can on the data set. So meaning that if you're adding a new column to your data set, you should push it back until the Power Query as much as possible. So if it's on a SQL, it should be done at the SQL level and not at the query level. But this also depends, because currently with, for example, the field parameters, you can create new tables on your model that are DAX based. There is also sometimes that you have small tables that only check small columns that you need, that will be calculated and don't have too much impact on your model. And that, so I think it depends a little bit on the model. You should always push back to the data set as much as possible. The big question, I think, that in terms of what you are asking is not when should I use Power Query or DAX. It's mainly when should I use a column or a measure. This is the main issue that I see, because sometimes having a column on your model can be good to calculate it easily, because you just do a simple sum, for example, or a simple average of that value. But if you are talking about a data set with 4 million or 5 million rows, then that additional column can have a lot of impact on performance of the refresh and so on. So probably you can use the DAX measure to make that sum. I don't know. Depends again. It's all about the model, okay?
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for that. We don't seem to have any more questions at the moment. So the videos will be available on YouTube and obviously from our site. So hopefully you'll get more feedback there. Thank you, Miguel. It's a great video. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you to the organization for having me. It was great to do this presentation for all of you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So we've got the evaluation slide up for Miguel there. If you could either use the bit.ly link underneath or use the QR code and feedback any comments for Miguel or indeed anyone else, they're all available through that link. and then we'll move on to our next session.